Well, hello friend, my name is Brett and I am here to teach you things that you will not learn in school that you need to know. And today we're going to talk a little bit about a thing called the social spectrum. Okay, now this isn't something I was taught in school, this is just something I came to realize later on in life. But I think it's so vitally important, especially if you are of the voting age, to understand how governments work and what is socialism. All right, so let's get started. Basically, you have two ideologies of thought about how governments or countries should work. Some countries, they're known as communist countries, they believe that the government should have full control and that the people should be subject to that government. All right? Then you have countries where it is considered a capitalist country, and in that ideology, really business and banks rule and anything goes. All right, so let's look at it like they're on two ends of a spectrum. Okay, so over here to the right you have businesses and banks that control the country, and over here you have the government that controls the country. This is what we call communism. And over here, this is what we call capitalism. Okay, we live in a capitalist country because that's what our forefathers wanted us to live in, but they made sure that we weren't purely capitalist because they knew that that would not work. So what they did was they created a country that had a constitution that kind of defined the rules about how the capitalism would operate. Now, anything in between these 2 points on this spectrum is a varying degree of socialism. All right? So this whole thing here is what we'd call socialism. All right, now, a lot of people at this point are going to disagree with me. They're going to say, no, socialism is an actual form of government, but it's not, because socialism just means social programs. What are social programs? There's things that the government gives or hands out to people in a social program. Social welfare. So if you have low-income housing, that's where the government actually helps people with a home. Okay, if you have women of infant children, these are women that qualify to get basically subsidies to buy food, specifically, or healthy food. All right, so social programs are what we would call a socialist government. All right, so the reason why I made this kind of instead of a straight line, kind of a hill, because right here at this point is what I call your 50% line. All right, so if a country is going to be really on one side of the spectrum or the other, then they're either going to favor businesses and banks or they're going to favor the government. All right, now going from here, there's 2 ways that you will be controlled by these 2 entities. All right, here in the United States, we are not purely capitalist. I explained that our forefathers made sure it would never be that way, but and we are not purely communist. Okay, I believe we're right about here. Okay, we're just a tick over onto the what we call the socialist or the government-controlled side. Now, governments control the people through 2 things. Number 1 is taxes, and number 2 are regulations. Okay, over here, businesses and banks, they basically control the people by things called debt and the need for to purchase goods and services. Okay, So let's talk about a communist country again. With a communist country, there is no debt, there's no goods, and there are no services that the common man has to pay for. That's all provided by the government. Okay, but he no longer receives a paycheck, and he no longer can use his money as he sees fit. He is now under the control of the government, and whatever the government says is basically what he does. So the government runs or rules with taxes and regulations. The businesses and banks rule with debt, goods, and services. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about you as a voting person. All right, you get to decide which way you want this country to swing. Because right now, there's candidates that want to take this country to here, and there's candidates for president who want to take this country to here. All right. Candidates over on this side, which we call the left, okay, they want to see our country move more towards government control. And so they want to offer things like free healthcare and free education. Now, you and I both know nothing is inherently free. What does that mean? That means they want to create taxes to pay so students can go to school for free. So someone is paying, it's just not the students, all right? The taxes are what's taken out of the common man or the everyday guy. It's taken out of his pocket. It's taken out every 2 weeks when he receives his paycheck. He doesn't even get to see it, okay? So over here, that everyday guy, if he owns a home, he has to pay the bank in the form of principal and interest for that home. We call it a mortgage. So the bank controls some of that guy's money, and the government controls some of that guy's money. And then whatever's left over, that's what he can pay for his goods and services with. So at the end of the month, he's hoping that he has been able to put a little away, pay all of his bills, goods and services, and then at the same time, pay for his home. All right? Now, here's the thing. What we don't hear the candidates talk about, and I'm really not trying to be for one or the other, I'm just trying to explain which side of the spectrum what is being promised. So the candidate over here says, hey, we got free healthcare, we got free education. That sounds great. Unfortunately, what they don't tell you is that healthcare and education is what they want it to be. So if you're a student and you're going to school and you're studying to become an engineer and you hear, oh my God, I can actually get my engineering degree and the government will pay for it, you are sorely mistaken. You are not going to get government pay for it unless the government needs engineers. So if they need a third grade school teacher, you will become a third grade school teacher. And that is what your free education will go towards. Because you can't sit in school and say, I am going to get a degree in underwater basket weaving and expect the government to pay for it. No, that's not how socialist governments work. They work more towards regulating and controlling the people and moving them in the way they want them to go. The same is true of healthcare, and you hear this all the time. When a candidate says, we're going to give you free healthcare, everyone's going to get free healthcare. In everyone's mind, they're thinking, wow, that's awesome. I'm going to get healthcare. If something goes wrong and I need to get surgery, I'm going to get the surgery and everything's going to be great. But unfortunately, we've seen this time and time again from socialist countries or even communist countries where people just don't get that stuff, okay? They end up getting a varying degree of that. So anything that is offered that is free and the government is offering it often ends up being what I call a big broken promise, and it's not exactly what you think it's going to be. It just happens to be something a little different. All right. So then you have candidates that want to be over on this side, and I'm thinking of one particular candidate. He's saying he wants to make America great again, and that's what we call the MAGA promise over here. And I believe he wants to bring the country back to this place. Remember, we're right about here. He wants to get us back over the hump going this way. Now, the interesting thing is these people over here, they call themselves progressives. But they really aren't progressives unless you want to progress towards a communist form of government where the government controls the people through taxes and regulations. Then you can call yourself a progressive. But what's really interesting is people over here want to be known as progressives as well. It's just that they want to progress the country back towards its capitalism. All right? So, in essence, when you hear someone say progressive, they're really saying we want to progress this country towards communism. Okay? That's a progressive. And people that are what we would call the right over here, okay, also known as conservatives, they want to progress the country back towards capitalism. So both are progressive. So if you ever hear progressive, it's really a misnomer. It is not true. No one wants to progress the country one way or the, we want to progress the country to a better place, because there is no better place. It's like I said, if you go to the extreme communism or to the extreme capitalism, you're actually doing disservice to your country. You want to be at some point on this progressive or social spectrum, and so whichever way you feel the country needs to move, then you become that progressive. Okay? All right, so no such thing as progressive. It's just the left has stolen that because it sounds really good. But if you don't agree with it becoming a progressive communist country, then you're not really aspiring to that. All right, so you got a candidate over here. He says, look, what we want is we want less regs. Let me put that, sorry. Not no regs, less regs. Okay, less regs and less taxes. That's what these guys will always say. If they are conservative to the right or progressive capitalists, they want to say less regs, less taxes. That means less government involvement. What they say is, in essence, that will free up that man's pocketbook. He will then be not under as many regulations. He'll be able to start a business and, maybe it's a restaurant, get a liquor license, be able to do all these things without having to jump through a bunch of hoops and also not have to fill out a bunch of paperwork and wait for a bunch of days before it finally gets passed through by the local government. So less regs, less taxes, less government, okay? Over here, you have more taxes, more regulations, more government. And you, my friend, get to decide which way you want your country to be. And that is why your vote matters. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying, you know what, it's all rigged and this, that, and the other. But if you walk into a voting booth and you put down, this is who I want because this is the kind of country I want, you at least walk out feeling good. If you never show up at that voting booth, you never really get a chance to really voice your opinion. And in the end, I think that's what matters, is that you get to have a say, you get to have a voice, and you get to use it on that day. So, my friend, I hope this helps you understand that we are better suited to be at some point on the social spectrum. It is not good for businesses and banks to control the people. It is certainly not good over here for the government to control the people. And wherever you feel you want to be on this spectrum, I say vote for that. All right. Hey, thank you. I hope you learned something, and I guarantee you, you will never learn this in school. All right. Until our next lesson, I say goodbye, friend, and good luck with moving this country in the direction you want to see it go.